Um, girls. I don't know what story to tell about my aunt. We were always really, really close. My aunt was always the one who, when I needed something extra, she was always the one there to take me out. My first haircut, she was the first one to ever take me out to get my hair professionally done. I remember many times of us going out together and doing manicures and pedicures and spending that like special time together. I remember our last one on my 30th birthday, so just 2 years ago, we went out together and we made sure we got manicures and pedicures and massages together. We just always spent that special time together. But she was so much to me. She was always my Aunt Susan that I could go to and talk to about anything. And in the past few years, it's been wonderful to just get to spend time together. And we always went out to get dinner once a month together. We went and found a special time to be together. These are my two little girls.
They are darling.
I think I have the cord. But again, she was just wonderful to me. I was happy to be here and get to hear all of your stories as well.
Okay. You know, we're going to try to get everybody up here because we all have a story. That's how wonderful Susan was. Ellen?
Hi everybody, my name is Ellen. I met Susan about 33 years ago at a Weight Watchers meeting. And we continued our friendship. We walked home the first night and found out that I lived on 17th and Spruce and her business was nearby. And the friendship just really started to grow. But even though I've known Susan for so many years, through so many fashions, I'm looking at her friend and saying, she did that? I never got that. And I'm looking and saying how unbelievably creative we all know that she was. The one thing that I found was that her most precious possession was her friends. And we're talking about a friend, I'm also talking about Maria and her work team that were just with her. But you know, Christine and Janet and Louisa. And the thing is, there were so many names, and I probably know so many of your names, because Susan talked about it, but she was very selective in who she introduced to who. Susan was like a one-on-one person. She loved having her times with her friends, and when I felt lucky enough for her to introduce another friend to me, I felt like it was such a gift. So I have to say, with all the memories and even looking at the clothes and all the people here, I would say that all of you were her family, and that she always had a fear, I think, of being alone. And at the very end, she found out how alone she was not. That she was surrounded with love and friends and people that really wanted to take care of her. And because that's what she did to all of us. She took care of us all. So bless you, Susan, and I hope you get it all back. And you all.
Okay, the aim is to get everybody up here, ultimately, because these stories are wonderful. They fit together so differently and so creatively, and it's a building block.
All right, I got it.
Okay.
He's got
Here we go.
For those of you that don't know me, my name is Ron Kaplan. I've been here a long time. I'm still here. I've lived in the same house at 3rd and South for 35, 36 years. I've raised a family there. I came to South Street a long, long time ago from the drummer, the underground newspaper located South Street. And I got to know everybody then when we were still the last dress shop before the river. Then in the 1980s, I started a newspaper called the South Street Star. And I published that. And Susan was one of the people that said she had her shop, I believe it was up on Spruce Street somewhere. It was out of the neighborhood by hand. And Susan, by Susan. And Susan advertised with me, and she once told me, she said, I don't have to advertise, you know. I have word of mouth following. That's better than advertising. But people need to know what's going on South Street and what the South Street community is all about. that's why she advertised with me, and that's the kind of heart that Susan had. But another completely unrelated and even better story. A few years ago, Eddie Beckerman, who a lot of you know, was in town. He lives in California now, and we were at Java at 4th and Gaskell having coffee in the morning, and Julia was sitting with Susan having coffee, and Eddie wanted to go say hello to Julia. And we walked over to say hello to Julia, and she was sitting with Susan. And Susan is talking to us like she knows us. And this is like 30 years after. And I said, excuse me, you're a really pretty woman, but you're talking to us like you know us. Who are you? And she said, Mrs. Lunenfeld, who are you? And I told her, I went, oh my goodness. And from that, I really learned the lesson, and it was reinforced when we had the reunion about 2 years later. I still live in the neighborhood, and I walk by the streets, and a lot of people that I see I don't say hello to. But at the reunion, just like at that day at Java, I met them again, and they're still here. And now we say hello to each other. So that string and that spirit is still here, it's still alive. We all need to turn around and look at the person standing next to us, because we might have known them 30 years ago or 40 years ago. And to renew those connections like we got to do at the 40th reunion and putting that whole show together was an awful lot of fun and a really important time for a whole lot of us. And we'll take with us for the rest of our lives. And Susan was a big, big part of that.
Anybody else from South Street? Okay. Yes, ma'am. You have some good stories.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Jilu. This mic is weird. It sounds loud. Right to your mouth. All righty. I met Susan in 1971. I was in Penn, and she's actually responsible for me meeting Elliot, who I married years later. She had a little shop she had a booth at the Head House Fair, and friends of mine who came from New York, who had gone to Syracuse, who you knew, yes, they all went crazy when they found her in Philadelphia, and they were so excited. And so we all went to her little house, which was the Father, Son, Holy Ghost house that had a little coal-burning stove that heated it. And Susan always thought it was very exotic that I came from India. And meanwhile, she was one of the most exotic people I ever knew, because she was just so open to anything. I remember going to her mother's house in Northeast Philadelphia, which was this very provincial Tudor home. Her mother was an artist, and Susan was trying to, make everyone feel very comfortable together. And yet Susan had friends from everywhere, and was just a citizen of the world. She never went to India, but I always felt she had. And she started this whole thing in France with underwear and lace and stuff, and made it all glamorous and gorgeous. And look at Christine in this outfit. It's just unbelievable. And I remember when my sister got married in India, Susan had this idea that the three of us, Elliot and her and I, would get all dressed up, because I couldn't afford to go back for the wedding because I had to work. And I wore a sari that my mother sent from India. I put Susan in a sari, so the two of us were all, decked out in saris, and we went to the Warwick and had a very fancy dinner. And she took my father when he came and he had a stroke. She took him to physiotherapy in her little Beetle Volkswagen Bug car. She would take him to Jefferson Hospital. She had such a good heart. She was always everyone's best friend. And you never knew actually who her other friends were because she kept a private life with everybody. And she was just a wonderful, open person with so many networks. And she's definitely listening to us today. And God bless. Thank you, Christine.
Okay, so, oh, great.
Because Sheila.
I know, we met. Isaiah introduced Susan and I. And we met in front of the crooked mirror. I was working. And she was leaning on a parking meter. Looking absolutely ravishing, like she always did. And we had this wonderful conversation. And Isaiah thought we should meet, that we'd be good friends, that we would be compatriots. But we kind of disappeared into our own worlds, and then Dale, where are you, Dale? Dale decided that we were really a match, a team. And he left for Turkey or Morocco? Morocco. To do some business. And he left us both in charge of his house sitting. And it was there that we formed this intimate relationship. They were gone for only a week, but in that time, Susan had this swarm of people around her, and she would sing these wonderful songs with this sweet voice and play guitar. And she could play violin, and she would tell these wonderful stories as interludes between her singing. And I was so enamored by her beauty and her talent. We almost opened a business together, a plant shop. But we were both she was so strong that she scared me. I felt like I wouldn't get my words out before she would, she would both fall into your arms with this grace and beauty and both be like a sumo wrestler. But she was a real talker, and I was very, she would love to chat on the phone, and I didn't. But to see her in person and to go on adventures was the wonderful thing. And we once went to see Black Orpheus together. And she was not a real crier, and I was sobbing away. And she kind of carried me back to her house and fed me coffee and drinks. And she was both, I always felt like, she was the one. I'm wearing a bra today because she told me to wear bras. Red that she told me to wear. I'm wearing makeup because she told me to wear makeup. I feel like she was like a nurturer. She made everybody look beautiful, made everybody feel like they were special. I mean, she always made me feel that way, like I could dance and that I could do anything I wanted, that whatever I did was wonderful. And in the last days, like her whole sickness, I want to say what kind of grace and beauty she had throughout her whole life. And like I know that she had this kind of spark and energy
but she also had this grace that kind of followed her, a kind of wispiness, a kind of elegance. And I was always impressed by how she blew her nose. You know, like, I find it so hard to blow my nose. And she would always do this thing where she'd blow her nose, like, oh, didn't she? I know, it was like, I don't know, it was so incredible, and it looked so graceful, like something you'd want to do. So, talent. She had talent. And I think of her in this wispy way, but in this also very strong and aggressive, and just with spirituality. And I know that there was a thing written about her, but when we were younger, we both felt like we had magical powers, and she was really into magic. And she would make love potions for people to help to strengthen them. And she did. It was amazing. And she also did things to protect herself by magic. And I was there for all the ceremonies. And in the last days of her life, I just want to say how beautiful and how graceful she went, and that it was very special to be a part of her living and a part of her dying.
Let me have one thing to say. Yes. My son Jeremiah isn't here today, but he always loved the banana smell that came from her hair. And he called her Banana Head. I have other things, but I can't remember them.
Unfortunately, Isaiah's having a case of Alzheimer's disease. Come on up.
South Street. Got so excited. Spruce Street.
Come on up.
Bye, Susan.
Wait, we got one more South Street.
Can you hear me back there? Can you hear me over here?
Yes.
South Street, Spruce Street. Bye, Susan. Western wear. Wonderful, wonderful neighbor.
Hello.
Society Hill Towers for 33 years. We've been neighbors. Her cheek was still warm when I bent to kiss it. To kiss her goodbye on that awful Monday morning in May after Sheila called me. When I stood up, my grief exploded out of my mouth out loud. A loud howl. A new Dylan album just came out recently, and I'm really pissed off to say that I can't share it with Susan. I can't share it like we did so many other times with these albums. Susan's gone. She lives on in all of us. Thank God.